By 1989, Saleen Mustangs were no longer a novelty on the streets or the racetrack. The word was out. These things went fast, and they handled great. The time was right to crank it up even more with a special Saleen, just in time for the Mustang's 25th birthday, the SSC. If the original Saleen Mustangs were great cars, the SSC was a supercar. In addition to the usual Saleen goodies, great handling and brakes, the aero package, and a killer stereo, this car packed more punch under the hood than any Saleen car yet. The Mustang's 302 cubic inch engine was treated to a set of tubular headers, a low restriction exhaust system, and a 65mm throttle body. These upgrades helped this little screamer produce 300 net horsepower. Out back, 355 gears gave it a real boost off the line, and 16-inch wheels with General 225s up front and 245s on the rear stuck it to the ground. In addition to the 160 SSCs built in 1989, Saleen also created 731 regular models, which sold for considerably less than the SSC's $36,500 base price. By now, the Saleen formula was well established. Cornering like it's on rails, fantastic looks, and the full-on luxury treatment inside. Saleen delivered on the last part of this promise with interiors that featured flow-fit seats, a Momo steering wheel, leather upholstery with embroidered Saleen logos, a full gauge package, and a full boogie stereo system. Even though Saleen's 302 cubic inch engine was still very much standard issue Ford, its 6-second 0 to 60 times and its 14.5-second quarter miles were the product of improved breathing on the intake and exhaust sides. With a top speed of over 150 miles per hour, the Saleen Mustangs had bridged the gap between nice American car and world-class sports racer. And that's where Steve Saleen had wanted to go from the beginning. He did it with a great design and good old American muscle.
I always felt that the American V8 was the better choice to go with, and history, I think, has proven that to be a wiser decision.
But unlike many muscle cars, the Saleen's performance didn't come purely from a mega-powered engine. The difference between Saleen's and ordinary Mustangs was a careful blending of individual pieces to create a car that excelled at everything. The racecraft suspension was designed to make the Mustang handle like a race car, and every piece from the special springs and Monroe shocks to the suspension bushings to its chassis stiffening components worked together to help the Saleen generate some eyeball flattening cornering forces. And unlike many of today's racing models, Saleen's aero package wasn't just a cosmetic feature. It all worked, from the side skirts and spoilers to the front air dam and rear valance. This ground-up approach toward building cars is unique to Saleen, and it dates back to their first days as car builders.
I always focus on building the complete car. We focus on the Mustang, improving it in areas that I felt we could add value added from the consumer standpoint. That was in the aerodynamics, was in the suspension, was in the interior ergonomics. By doing a complete car, certifying it, putting a serial number on it from the get-go was always our main focus and main objective.
By the early 90s, the Fox-bodied Mustangs were getting a little long in the tooth, styling-wise. But Ford's special vehicles operations had made this little ride into a pretty mean muscle car, and Ford was selling over 200,000 of them a year at a sticker price of around $15,000. Steve Saleen's Ultimate Mustang was packing a $25,990 price tag. Even though the Saleen was literally rolling off showroom floors and winning SCCA races, the recession of the early 90s took a big bite out of Saleen's sales. Between 90 and 92, less than 400 Saleens were built. But even during this time, the car continued to develop into a more amazing package. Saleen celebrated their 10th anniversary in 1993, and their latest and best development, the Saleen SC, rolled out with even more performance. 17 by 9-inch wheels with 45 series tires, Saleen SVO 4-wheel disc brakes, and new racecraft struts and springs improved the car's already excellent handling. And the new two-tier rear spoiler and bold graphics told the world that this was a horse of a much different color. Under the hood, a Saleen-designed intake manifold with a huge 77mm airflow sensor and upgraded fuel delivery and ignition systems helped the 5-liter Mustang engine develop 304 horsepower and 326 foot-pounds of torque. Even though times were hard, Saleen's don't back down attitude still showed. Their sales literature stated, if you drive a Saleen, you win. Everything else is just watching. Stay with us. We'll watch and drive the next generation of Saleen Mustangs when the American muscle car continues. For the Saleen Mustangs, it was the best of times and the worst of times. The early 90s were scary times for anyone building supercars, and Saleen was no exception. Still though, the heartbeat of competition was strong, and this resulted in some exceptional cars. Thanks to this spirit, the company emerged as a stronger, tighter organization, just in time to work its magic on another new Mustang. Once again, racing was key to the car's development. Team Saleen wasn't just getting their jollies out there on the racetrack, they were building a database. And once again, Saleen Mustangs were winning everything in sight.
We really needed to have the pedigree, if you will, of the racing, I think, to help elevate us to further our sales on the street side.
Saleen Performance, as the company was now called, was ready to unveil another special supercar. And this time the accent was on pure muscle, the S351. In addition to the usual Saleen handling and aerodynamics, the S351's Windsor crate motor finally provided enough cubic inches to make this car a bonsai street machine. But for good measure, they leaned on the 351 just a little, with a specially designed roller cam, Edelbrock aluminum heads, and Ford SVO upper and lower intakes. Ceramic-coated headers and a Borla exhaust system helped this engine produce over 370 horsepower at 5,100 RPM and 422 foot-pounds of torque at 3,500 RPM. For hardcore muscle car fans, an optional supercharger was available, which raised horsepower to 480 and made the S351 a true cruise missile. And of course, the racecraft suspension still turned in skid pad numbers that would make a Porsche driver envious. Among all the special order supercars, the Saleen ranks at the very top of the touch and feel scale, and Saleen's interior treatment was as posh as European cars, costing several times as much. Even with all the new power, Saleen's focus stayed fixed on building the perfect car in every area of performance, from quickness to driver comfort. Neil Hanneman is Saleen's Vice President of Engineering, overseeing the racing program and providing direction for all of Saleen's products. According to him, racing is the essential element in the Saleen automobile.
We try to put as much performance in the car as we can. We've got the racecraft suspension. All the cars get that suspension. It's not an option. It gives the cars amazingly good handling. And then we do a certain amount of engine modifications. We did then have a number of options, and that's where you really get into some performance. We've got supercharged engine options that really pump the power up. We've got brake options that add a lot of braking power to the car. So those options really add a lot to the car. But every Saleen has its, some base chassis work, and then the body appearance. That's really what sets the car apart when you see it.
And once again, this racing experience found its way into another Saleen creation. This time, a lower-priced supercar that performed like its big brother S351. The S281 rolled out in 1996 as a lower-priced entry into the Saleen stable with exceptional bang for the buck. It's got all the Saleen goodies at a price that puts it in the range of many of today's factory racers whose performance is mostly cosmetic. The Saleens of the late 90s represented the highest level of performance from any Saleen yet. But far from being through, they had even more exciting cars ready to roll out, and it was getting harder to tell the race cars from the street cars. In fact, that was part of the plan. Stay with us as we go racing, or cruising, or all of the above on the American